May the way open before you.
Welcome back to another bonus episode of The Way of Love. I'm Sandy Milien, and I'm here with Kyle Oliver.
Thanks, Sandy. Before we introduce today's conversation, we have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. When we wrapped up season 2, we said we'd be back with season 3 right about at this time in January. Well, the team has been talking about how to give our listeners more of what they want, which of course is more time with Bishop Curry, and also about how to help the show reach more listeners. So we wanted to let you know that we're going to push the launch of season 3 back a few months so we can start bringing you episodes that we think will make both of those goals possible. So watch your feeds for that after Easter. We are really excited.
In the meantime, we'll keep on sharing bonus episodes every 2 weeks, including from the live show that we're recording in Atlanta on Wednesday, January 22nd at the Rooted in Jesus conference. Today's episode is the first of a 2-part conversation. You'll hear Bishop Curry with the Very Reverend Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas, Dean of the Episcopal Divinity School at Union Theological Seminary. Check your show notes for a link to the video version of this interview. Dean Douglas begins with a question about how the legacy of slavery has shaped Bishop Curry's family and his vocation in the Episcopal Church.
I'm the child of a grandmother who had little more than a 6th grade education, came up from the South during the time of the Great Migrations. And my grandmother simply had a dream that one day her 4 grandchildren, which were myself and my 3 siblings, would one day graduate high school. She couldn't dream a dream bigger than that for her colored children, as she would call us.
Yep.
I am also the great-granddaughter of a woman who was born into slavery. And I knew her. We called her...
You did know her?
Yeah. She died when I was about 7 years old or so. And so she lived a little, like about 101 or so. So I am accountable to them. I hold myself accountable to them and the dreams they had and the dreams they couldn't dream, right? What does it mean for you to come from a people who were enslaved and didn't have the opportunities we have? What does it mean for you as you sit here as the Black presiding bishop of this church?
We share similar trajectories and similar history, and you know, and the truth is, my grandmother, I think, I don't know if she had a high school degree. I'm not sure about that, but I know she'd gone to high school. My maternal grandmother had gone to high school, but she was a sharecropper's daughter and the granddaughter of slaves, and similar on my father's side of the family. You know, I remember there was one time when our youngest daughter, Elizabeth, was playing, and somehow she got her finger caught in the door, and literally the door closed on it and chopped half the finger off. It took a second to realize what happened, and her finger was actually dangling. And so I got the finger up and wrapped it up and put ice on it, and then got her older sister I said, you just gotta hold your sister in the car. And we got in the car and drove to the hospital. We were living in Baltimore at the time. And we drove to Sinai Hospital and went to the emergency room. And they took her first in line because they wanted to save the finger, and she was a young child. And so they took her and they did whatever it was they were doing. And then they put the finger, they said, you've just got to hold her here and hold the finger in this solution because we're trying to save the finger. And so I guess they were trying to kill germs.
Right.
So it's holding in the solution. So I've got this crying child and literally in my arms, I mean, literally crying. And then part of me think, boy, her mother's going to kill me when she gets home. So I got this child, and I will never forget, I don't even know if I've ever told her this story, but I was literally sitting there rocking her. And just trying to rock her until the pain would subside and the tears, whatever, just doing what you do. And I remember just telling her, you are the descendants of old slaves who lost everything they had and they made it. You are made of tough stuff. And This hurts.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of life's gonna hurt. And you gotta fall and get yourself back up. And when I was saying that, I realized I was saying what my grandmother had said when we were little children and fell and scraped her knee or something like that. That's how deep that is. And the truth is, everything that I hope I do that accomplishes anything for the good of humanity and God's dream in this world, there's a part of me that does it because I owe them.
Yep.
And it's the next leg of the journey that I've got to go.
Right.
And I don't know, I do know why. I was just coming here from, I was in Charlotte preaching at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church there. A great church. Dr. Jones is the pastor there, and really a fine, extraordinary pastor and community leader. And I was there with a group of friends. We had all grown up together. And we were sitting around talking about, why is it that this little community in Buffalo, New York, of folk who had moved from the Carolinas and Virginia, and some from Georgia and Alabama, mostly the Carolinas and Virginia and Buffalo. What was it that it produced folk, several MDs, several attorneys, teachers, and lawyers? What was it, this little Black community? Why did it produce this incredible renaissance of people? We were trying to figure out, well, we were there, what happened? Part of it was that community, at least at that time, knew that the legacy of those ancestors who had suffered so horrendously and worked so tirelessly so that not they, but those who followed them might live the dream, that was bequeathed to their children, and that we imbibed that, and it became a part of who we were. And I grew up knowing that I had to make a contribution to humanity that made a difference. I remember one time I do know what happened. My father wanted me to go pick up my grandmother for something. And I said, do I have to go pick? I was like 16, he just learned how to drive. I said, do I have to go get her? And he blurted out, he said, the Lord didn't put you here just to consume the oxygen.
Right, exactly. I remember those things.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the self-understanding that you're not here just to consume.
Right.
You are here to give. You are here to make a difference. The Lord has blessed you so that you can be a blessing. He never said it that way, but that's what they were saying. And if you don't make a difference, then you are squandering the heritage that has been bequeathed to you.
No, hearing you literally brought tears into my heart too, because I remember hearing those stories and knowing who our grandparents were and great-grandparents were and the opportunities they didn't have, and yet they survived anyhow, and they fought for our freedom anyhow. And so for us to, one, give up in the face of the kind of struggles that we find today are nothing compared to those.
Give up is blasphemy.
That's right. It's exactly right. It's blasphemy. So their strength runs through us, and we are accountable to those folks who really lost their lives. I always tell students, look, particularly Black students, no, you can't come here and not turn in your work because someone died so that you could be sitting here, or to not vote, et cetera, et cetera. Which leads me then really to our church, the Episcopal Church, right? And, this may not be news to you. It's a white denomination.
The Episcopal Church is?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Here we are in a white church. A church that is not simply the church of colonizers, a colonizing church. A church that likes to boast of being the church of 11 presidents, right? And this is a church with at best, checkered history in relationship to issues of racial justice. During the period of slavery, the antebellum period, our church didn't really split over the issue, that it never really came to the forefront of our church as a moral issue in terms of slavery. And so, given the reality of this church, the history of this church, which has not always been so welcoming to us as people of color. And some would say continues not to be so welcoming. What does it mean that you are a Black man as the presiding bishop of this white Episcopal church?
Part of our calling is the hard and difficult calling of helping this community, this is my faith community, to become what God dreams and intends for it to be, what Jesus was talking about when he walked the shores of Palestine, what he was talking about when he talked about the reign and the kingdom of God, what he was talking about when he said, make disciples of all nations, and he didn't discriminate, when he was talking about when he said, come unto me, all ye who are weary. All ye is actually biblical for all y'all, for all ye. And that's really what he was talking about, that this was a profoundly, not just simply welcoming, this was a profoundly embracing vision of God's created humanity that is no respecter of persons, as the old King James used to say. That's the gospel vision. That's what Jesus is about. And in the church and in the world, the church is to be a witness to what the world's supposed to be. That it may be incumbent upon all of us who claim to be baptized disciples of Jesus of Nazareth. It's incumbent on all of us, but those of us who have positions of leadership, and maybe those of us who have positions of leadership who come from communities who know what it is to have been excluded, who know what it is, as the old spiritual says, I've been buked and I've been scorned, I've been talked about, show as you're born, who know what that experience is like, who know what, I was thinking about when you were talking before, Langston Hughes' poem, From Mother to Son, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Yeah, that those of us who know something about that, it is incumbent upon us to help the church to be a witness and a community where nobody else has to suffer like that, where nobody else gets put down like that. We who have been put down must not put down anybody else, and we must not stand by idly when somebody else is put down. And so part of maybe one of the callings of somebody like a Michael Curry, who is a descendant of African slaves, it may well be to help the church truly be Catholic. We're comfortable with being Catholic as being doctrinally faithful to the faith once delivered unto the saint. And I believe that. I got no problem with that. I believe that. But that word Catholic means something else. That word Catholic is Acts 10, where Peter realizes that the Spirit of God has fallen upon the Gentiles too, just like it did upon the Jewish Christians. It is now fallen upon Gentiles, and that the Spirit of God is no respecter of persons, and that God calls who God wills and who God wants, and that God's going to create a beloved community. In Christ there is no east, no west, in him no south, no north, and that's our calling. Well, maybe it takes a descendant of chattel slaves to come and just say what is already the case. And to invite and call and plead and cajole and do whatever you have to do to say, come on, let's follow Jesus for real. Well, let's really follow Jesus.
And that leads me to your initial call. To call Episcopalians into the Jesus movement.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I thought you were trying to lead.
No, I really wasn't.
Lead to the Jesus movement. Because what's interesting to me, first of all, some of my non-Episcopalian friends have said, so what have y'all been doing all along? As you talk about this and talk about what it means to be truly Catholic, and when we think about our history, we're descendants of persons where the Bishop of London said, when you get baptized, don't be thinking that has something to do with
your civil estate.
What's going to happen on earth to you. You're going to still be a slave. Now, when you get to heaven, God can work that out, your salvation. So this is our church. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound a whole lot like Jesus to me, right? And so I thought when you called, I know there are people who were fearful, oh, Lord, he's called us into the Jesus movement. Now we're going to have to be evangelical and knock on doors and tell people to come, but that doesn't work. Right. I heard it as my Black presiding bishop saying, y'all, you have not been following Jesus. And you called him to the Jesus movement in a moment of, the moment we're in this racial unrest. in injustice. And so I heard you signifying that, you know, in Black tradition, we signify, and those who have ears to hear will hear. Now, what prompted that, Brother Curry?
Well, Sister Dean, you know, it's because I genuinely do believe that this church has the capacity, as that old hymn says, rise up and claim the high calling. I genuinely believe that. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be doing this. I really do. And I believe deeply that Jesus is the key to our salvation, our emancipation, our liberation. That he's the key. And it's true for the Episcopal Church, but it's true for any of the churches. I mean, you look at any of the mainline churches, Protestant, Roman Catholic, in America I'm talking about now. I can't talk about the rest of the world, but in America. There is a pattern of accommodating and becoming comfortable with the culture and the way things are.
Right.
And that just happens. It happens. And when the church gets too cozy with the culture and the way things are, you have to ask yourself the question, so who is your Lord? Who's really God? Who's really in charge? And I know we got to find new words for Lord. I get all that. I know that. But the point is, what it's getting at is who is in charge of your life and the life of the church? Is it Jesus of Nazareth? Or is it the culture in which you are embedded? And if it is the culture, then you're not following Jesus, or not following Jesus as he, when Jesus says Jesus calls us o'er the tumult, not following him. The teaching Jesus, who they later discovered to be the Christ, but they heard his teachings and saw the way he lived his life and how he interacted with folk. And they eventually, I'm gonna be careful because I know I'm talking to a theologian, but I remember, the one thing I remember from Paul Tillich was he said that something about Jesus was he was transparent. And folk could see God through him.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they came to know him as Christ, the Messiah, and all of that through seeing through him. You see what I mean? They said, this brother is like showing us God, like we haven't seen this before. And that Jesus of Nazareth is a game changer. That Jesus of Nazareth is the one who defines his ministry in Luke 4. I mean, quoting from Isaiah, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me, what? To preach good news to the poor, to proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty all those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the Jubilee, the great getting up morning, the acceptable year of the Lord. That's Jesus.
Right.
Now, I'm here to tell you that Jesus can take the Episcopal Church, can take the Presbyterian Church, can take the Methodist Church, the UCC, the Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox. That Jesus can take Christians and turn us upside down, which is right side up. The Jesus movement, people whose lives are rooted and grounded in this Jesus of Nazareth and his example, his teachings, and his loving, liberating, and life-giving spirit. It's going to be different. We're not going to be perfect, but it's going to be different. And where I have gone off in my life, and where the church in its history has gone off in its life, where it's been silent during slavery, where it has been silent at any folk being put down, whether it's women or LGBTQ folk or whoever, anybody, whether it's poor folk, whoever it is, putting down anybody, where it's been silent or vocally complicit. It's been when it has strayed away from daring to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. You find very few direct references to the actual teachings of Jesus of Nazareth in pro-slavery writings.
That's right.
Now, there's a reason for that. Jesus is not helpful if you want to be a bigot.
That's right.
He's not helpful.
Well,
and the church has gone wrong when it goes away from that Jesus and fixates on being part of the way things are.